Welcome back to a very special episode of Let's Talk About. I'm one of your hosts, Wade.
Another host, Devin.
What are we talking about this week, Devin?
Talking about possibly one of the greatest story video games of all time, The Last of Us. Specifically part two.
Part two.
We will talk briefly about the first one, I guess. So
yes. And disclaimer for The Last of Us Part 2, we haven't actually played this game, so we're pretty much just going to be talking about the story and reviewing the story and the characters and everything. We can't really talk much about gameplay because we haven't really played it. So
I've seen it firsthand though, so I can talk a little bit about gameplay, I guess, because my brother played it and I sat there and watched him play it because I wanted to know the story.
Yeah.
But so do you just want to start with the first Last of Us a little bit? Get our general background on what we think about the first one before we get into
If you want to, yeah. We can.
All right, what do you think? What are your big pointers for The Last of Us Part 1?
I think The Last of Us Part 1, it's been said a million times at this point, but I think The Last of Us Part 1 is kind of a masterpiece in a lot of ways. Not necessarily in terms of, I mean, the story's not like anything super original and unique, but the fact that they told this story with characters that we cared about, and they got us to actually care about these characters and, you know, on this journey, to where like at the end when, you know, Joel basically becomes like a villain, we're still kind of like on his side a little bit. I think that's kind of like badass and kind of neat. And I don't think a lot of video games really do that. And I think that The Last of Us, when it came out, was something like special. And it was something that we hadn't really like seen before.
It is definitely a very story-driven game, where most games are like, let's just do some fun gameplay. This is like, you want to know what happens in this game. Like,
yeah,
the story. I mean, not saying there's not games out there like that, but this is very much a very story-driven game. And I think they do a great job with character development throughout the whole thing.
They really do.
They do. And so do you consider it a masterpiece or not? Like
the first one, I'd consider it a masterpiece.
You consider it a masterpiece? I was going to say, if it's kind of a masterpiece, what would have made it one? But if you can already consider it a masterpiece.
I'd say Last of Us 1 is a masterpiece.
I don't think there's anything in Last of Us 1 that's like not important. I feel like every story aspect of it is very much important to developing the characters and then how the ending ends up.
Yeah.
Speaking of the ending, are you a fan of the ending of The Last of Us Part 1?
I love the ending. I think that's the best way they could have ended it. And I think that, honestly, like, I kind of wish they just ended it there and that was it. And The Last of Us was like a one and done thing, because that's kind of the end of the story. Because the story, like, I know the whole journey is about like, we got to go to this thing and get the cure or whatever, but the whole story is actually kind of just about Joel and Ellie. And at the end, when she's like, oh, you know, is everything you told me true, whatever, blah, blah, and he says like, yeah, and she's like, okay, and then it cuts to black. That's kind of like their arcs are done. Their journey is complete. They're now like sort of a father-daughter thing now, and the story's over. Like, that's kind of, I think that ending's kind of definitive, and it was lightning in a bottle. I think they had one, like, they made a game. It came out. It was awesome. It was game changing for a lot of people, and they had a really awesome story, and I love that ending.
I know both these games were made by Naughty Dog, but were they both written by the same person? Or
yeah, Neil Druckmann.
Neil Druckmann?
All right. Both of them, yeah.
Do you think he actually had a sequel in mind when he made the first one?
Not at the time, no. I hope not, because I hope he's not like an arrogant asshole.
I mean, you never know. There's always that, like, when you're writing a story, it's like, oh yeah, okay, what would happen next type thing.
No, but I mean, you always, when you're writing something, you always, you know, think about like, oh, what would happen, you know, whatever. But when you're writing something, especially when it's the first thing, you don't have more than just like, oh, what if, you know, it's not like, oh, I'm going to have a sequel and we're going to do this and blah, blah, blah. You just kind of have like a vague idea of like, oh, maybe if we get another one, we could probably like, you know, go here. I don't think he thought it was going to be as big as it was.
You want to get into Last of Us Part 2, which I think you have a lot to say, honestly, about The Last of Us Part 2.
I do have a lot to say. So we're going to talk about The Last of Us 2 right now. We're going to start off, not necessarily going into spoilers. We're just kind of going to do a general sort of our thoughts on the story. So Devin, tell me your thoughts on The Last of Us Part 2. No spoilers.
Honestly, like, my like feeling is that like I really don't know how I feel about this game. This is a very polarizing game, honestly. Like there, like I could see a lot of people like really enjoying it, but I could also see a lot of people really not liking it. And I don't know which one I fall into at the moment.
Yeah, this is the Last Jedi of video games.
It honestly really is, because they do a lot of things that are possibly out of character for these characters, I think. And they pull a lot of like switcheroos, I guess, which I'll get
There's a
into
lot of
later.
conveniences as well.
Yes.
Like the Last of Us Part 1 had some, but this game is like all conveniences. Like every 15 minutes there's like a convenience that happens.
There's a lot of moments where I'm like, that person should have died, but they didn't. And it's just like, that's just, it pulls me out of the world. It's like, that's not realistic, and that's supposed to be a really realistic game. All right, let's go into non-story stuff for a second. This looks amazing.
It does.
This game looks fantastic. I hate the setting, honestly. It's in Seattle, and I hate it. I hate
you don't
that
like
setting. Not that I don't like the city of Seattle. I just hate how it looks. It's so dull and rainy and boring looking.
I mean, that's Seattle. Seattle's rainy all the time.
But like, I just hate it's just so gray.
It doesn't look as good as the first one. Like the first one, a lot of times it's just kind of gray looking, but because you're traveling like across the country, you do get to go to various sort of different locations. This one's very much just like, oh, you're in Seattle. It's always fucking raining because it's Seattle and it sucks.
And then, but it changed the settings a lot too. Like because you went throughout the seasons in the first one. So it's like, oh, sometimes it's winter, sometimes there's very colorful fall and all that. But you're also sometimes in the sewers and all. You don't do the sewers a lot in this second game. You're always just on the ground in this murky, dull-looking place. And I don't like it. I like the inn, because the inn, they travel to a different place, and it looks awesome.
It does. It looks really good.
It looks good because it's got vibrant colors.
They go to Jackson, right?
They go to Santa Barbara in California.
Santa Barbara.
Yeah, they go to Santa Barbara, and it looks awesome. It looks great. I wish the whole game was in Santa Barbara because it looks all awesome.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stupid things in this game too that are so unnecessary that it could have been completely cut out and it would have been fine. Like
I think my biggest problem, and I don't mean to cut you off, but my biggest problem with the story in general is the fact that it to me it felt like Neil Druckmann had like a 10 to 11 hour story, and he's like, fuck, this needs to be much longer. So how am I going to pad this out? Oh, let's just do the same. Let's just tell the same story again, but have you play as a completely different character from a different perspective. But it's still the same story that's going on though. You're just seeing it from a different perspective. And I see what he was going for, but I don't think he really like nailed it though. There have been games and like movies and stuff that have done that have nailed it. I don't think he really nailed it. One, because the new character that we play as, Abby, isn't all that interesting, and her story isn't. It's just kind of like, all right, cool.
The most interesting thing about Abby is just where she ties into the story, and once you figure that out, it's just like, okay.
Which, by the way, and you were witness to this, I figured it out.
Oh, I know.
Like an hour into the fucking game, I called like everything that happened in the game. I was just like, oh, I bet this is gonna happen. I bet this is why this happened. I called all of it because it's so predictable.
And a game like this should have been unpredictable, honestly.
Well, that's what made the first one so great. Yeah. No one expected going into The Last of Us that your daughter was going to die like 20 minutes in, and it was going to be really emotional. Nobody expected that.
And that's where this game honestly falls flat. There's not a lot of unexpected things in this game at all.
There's really like none.
Like honestly, and I'm trying not to go into spoilers, but there's maybe a death or two that you're like, oh, that was kind of unexpected.
There might be one that people are like, oh shit. But I think if you've seen like any of the trailers, you kind of get the hint that like something's gonna happen.
Well, I'll talk about it in spoilers, but there was one thing that I was like, really? Like that happened? Like I wasn't expecting that to happen. But I'll get in. I can't talk about it because it's spoilers. But honestly, there's nothing grasping about this game that's better than the first one. There's nothing in it that makes it better, I honestly think.
Yeah, and I mean, from what I've seen from the gameplay looks fun, but a lot of it kind of just looks the same. It kind of just looks like the first game again. It doesn't really feel like they've had that much improvements. There's some new improvements to like, customizing guns. Like you can now add like silencers and shit to guns, and that's cool. But like it just seems like it plays exactly the same. Like the characters move the same way. The guns are kind of all the same. you do exactly the same thing. You can prone now, which is cool, I guess, if you need to do that.
I was gonna say that gameplay is literally the exact same. The only thing they change is they add some new enemies and new zombies.
I will say those new zombies are pretty fucking terrifying.
They are, but there's also to a point where it's just like, okay, how far can you go with these new zombies? Like, because there's like there were only like 3 different types of zombies in the first game.
Yeah, there was the runners, the clickers, and the bloaters.
Yeah, and then in this game there's like 8, I feel like now.
There's quite a bit, yeah.
And it's just like how far is this gonna go?
Yeah, it's starting to like creep into like video gamey territory.
Yeah,
I know it's a video game, but like in the first one you kind of believed it a little bit more, where you're like, okay, I can buy this.
And I'm not saying that The Last of Us Part 1 had amazing AI anyways. Like the AI
the AI in the first one wasn't great.
It is very dumb at moments. But the AI in this is still kind of dumb. Like they don't do, like humans don't do what normal humans would do. Like it's just weird. And the human gameplay, there's too much of it. Like there's too much of just killing humans in this game. Where there wasn't a lot in the first, there was some.
I'd say the first one, there was quite a bit of it.
There was a bit, but I feel like this game is all just killing humans. Like that's all I watch.
There's a lot of killing humans.
There's not a lot of zombie moments in this game, which it should be because it's more about zombies than it is about the people. But I know there's these factions and all this going on in this world right now, but I don't know. I wasn't a fan of we're just shooting people and then that doesn't feel like a zombie game. It just feels like a regular game. So I don't know.
So overall, how do you feel about this game? Like good, bad, mixed? Like
mixed, honestly, because like there's some stuff towards the end where I'm like, that made it like a little bit better, but it didn't help the overall story. Did it need to be made? No, it definitely didn't need to be made. Did it add anything to the first one? No. The only thing it does is wrap up some stories for some certain characters, but that's about it.
I mean, does it? We'll talk about that a little bit in spoilers. I definitely like, and I'm just talking from like a story standpoint. I definitely, I like some parts of the story, and I like sort of what Neil Druckmann was going for and like trying to do, but I'm just not. I don't like the story, and I think that he kind of ruins some of the characters from the previous game.
I don't know if anybody got ruined.
I think a couple people got ruined and like fucked over.
I think there's an interesting play, especially towards the end for Ellie, at least.
I think the ending is terrible. By the way,
you think that like the very end is terrible?
The ending of the game is terrible because it doesn't make any sense.
Which we'll get into that,
and we'll talk about that a little bit. Yeah.
I'm kind of wondering what you don't think makes sense, because I thought it was. I thought the ending was honestly okay. Like I think it was better than the actual game. Honestly, like the end was like okay, like I get it type thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's. I don't want to talk about it now because we're not in spoilers yet, but I'll go in depth a little bit more with it when we get into spoilers. But what was like, without spoiling anything important? What was one of your, do you have like a favorite moment or favorite scene or like favorite gameplay moment in this game?
The first like 10 minutes is like my favorite moment because it's just like, that's just insane what they did. Honestly, how they did it is kind of insane. And I think you know what I'm talking about. I don't know if it's not 10 minutes, but the first
couple hours.
Yeah, first couple hours, like, okay, that's it. But once after that first couple hours, it's just stale, honestly. For the next 20, there's too many characters that I don't care about.
There's a lot of characters.
Like, you can make interesting characters, but there's a lot of characters, and I'm trying to figure out their names. But then, like, something happens to them, and I'm like, okay, what happened?
No, yeah, that's definitely a problem I had with this game, where like the characters in the first Last of Us, they're not super like interesting, but like you remember Bill and you remember Tess and you remember Sam and Henry. Like you remember them because either they have iconic parts or like they have like something really like fucked up happens to them, or they're just likable characters.
There are also not a lot of them.
And they don't stick around through the entire game. These characters are there from the start, and there's
like 10 characters you're supposed to know in this game that just got introduced. And it's just like, oh my gosh.
And none of them are likable.
we see them for like 10 minutes, and then it's like, okay, you're supposed to remember these characters. It's like, no, I don't remember any of these people.
Yeah, and then halfway through the game, when we switch characters, we kind of forget about the other side characters, and we're being introduced to new side characters. So it's like, okay, that's
and
weird.
Another problem with switching halfway through the game and it goes back in time again, I guess, it's just it's like, I already know what happens to these characters, so why am I doing it again?
that really, I hate when stuff does that.
Like, I already know what's gonna happen. Like, why are we doing this again? And the thing that the stuff that we don't know that happens isn't important at all.
I mean, we'll talk a little bit more about it in spoilers, but I get why he did it, because he wanted to kind of humanize Abby a little bit more and make us sort of, she makes a decision early on in the game, and he wanted us to sort of, like, I guess, humanize with her a little bit more and like understand that decision. But like from the start, we kind of understand that decision. If you've played the last game, you kind of get it. But there's nothing in her like gameplay moments that really make me like her or really make me care. Like, she's just, her story isn't that interesting. Like, it's just not, it's like, okay, cool. All of that led up to this one moment. Cool.
And from a gameplay standpoint, she plays exactly like Ellie does. And that really bugs me. I wish they would have changed a little bit about her.
I don't know if I'd say that. I mean, she is jacked and she will just like rip a fucking zombie's head off.
But she doesn't take less hits to kill a zombie than Ellie does. That's the thing. Like, it does. She is jacked, but she doesn't play like she's jacked. It'd be different if like
she kind of does. She does though.
It'd be different if you could just one hit a zombie with a baseball bat compared to Ellie takes 3. It makes
I mean,
sense.
the gameplay, like, you can run into a room as Abby and just beat the shit out of a zombie. With Ellie, it's like, it'll take you a while to fist fight one of these zombies because you have this little knife. With Abby, you could definitely, like, you could do some damage on these fucking zombies.
Different compared, like, their physique should make it feel like they're playing as different. You're playing as a different character.
That's fair.
And I feel like she should have had different weapon styles and stuff, because even though they had the same weapons, and it's just like, okay, whatever. Like, Abby is trained, and compared to Ellie, she's way more trained, and she's like a soldier and all that stuff. So she should play a little bit different, and she should be a little better than Ellie, honestly.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's just me personally. Maybe that's...
No, I get what you're saying. That makes sense.
I don't know. If you're going to make 2 separate characters that are half the game each, make them different, I think. Don't make them the same. Otherwise, you're just doing the same thing.
Well... But I think that's what Neil Druckmann was kind of going for. Like, oh, they're the same. Like, that's...
I know. I saw the parallels.
And I think that was probably the biggest mistake of the whole game.
The parallels were too forced in this game, honestly. Like, it's just, I was just like, okay, I get it. You're trying to, like, they're similar people. I get it. But it's too forced.
Well, I think now we should go into spoilers.
If you're ready.
We can really talk about some deep shit.
Are you ready?
I'm ready. My butthole's ready.
Let's talk about the main thing, I guess, first. Joel. He gets beaten to death.
The most important aspect of Joel that we find out in this game is his last name.
Oh yeah, I already forgot what it was. But
Miller.
Yeah, whatever.
Joel Miller. That's the wait 7 years to fucking figure out his last name.
But he dies, which was very predictable. Everybody kind of saw that.
Yeah. And I've heard a lot of people complain about like how he died and how he kind of, died like a bitch and went out kind of like unceremoniously. I kind of like that though, because that's kind of how you would go out in this sort of setting.
Did he die like a bitch though? I don't really think he did.
Well, that's what I've heard people say. Like, because whenever you have a character that people like and you kill them, they have to go out and like this big epic, like there's explosions and shit, and they got to go out guns blazing and everything. I kind of like that Joel just like got the shit kicked out of him, like with a golf club.
It was also like 2 on 10, so like, they were gonna lose.
It is a little weird though, and I've seen people point out that like Tommy just immediately just gave away who they were and like what they were doing immediately to these strangers. Like that is a little weird.
I mean, I guess it's been a couple years. They're trying to bring in people, so they were just.
I know, but like, don't like, hey, this is my brother Joel, and I'm Tommy. Like that, like I'm sure Joel knows after slaughtering an entire hospital of fireflies that like somebody's gonna come looking for you, motherfucker. Like you might not want to let people know who you are.
Maybe, I don't know. Maybe maybe just slipped. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe it did, but then it's all Tommy's fault. So Tommy's a dumbass now.
Yeah, freaking Tommy. Yeah, and me and you predicted what was going to happen when Abby was first introduced to the game.
Yeah, we predicted her backstory and how she was connected and like why she kills Joel.
Well, as soon as
right after she killed him, I was like, oh, I bet she has a Firefly connection or whatever, and she does. Her
Right.
dad was the dude you stabbed in the neck at the end of the first Last of Us, which I also predicted.
Which is honestly kind of stupid. I thought they were going to go with like Joel did something in between games that we didn't know or something like that.
Well, I mean, I kind of figured it had something to do with the last game because they wouldn't have. I feel like that would have been kind of weird if like something he did off screen was just kind of the catalyst for this.
That would have been more interesting. It's like, okay, what changed between this game and that game?
I mean, I think honestly, it would have been more interesting if it was something else from the first Last of Us that like like another character that we interacted with that got fucked over or something is now coming back and getting revenge or whatever and killing Joel. Like that would be kind of neat because it wouldn't be as like on the nose as like, oh yeah, remember that time I murdered a bunch of people in the hospital? Oh yeah, that's connected now.
Right.
I think that could have been a little bit more fun if it was like, oh, I remember that one mission where that dude, yeah, that's cool. But no, it's the most obvious thing.
And honestly, and I don't know if I hate or am okay with this, but Ellie's immunity means nothing in this game.
Yeah.
They don't play on it at all.
Like, they touch on it a little bit towards the end.
Yeah,
when they have that flashback.
But it doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things of this game.
It really kind of doesn't.
Which is kind of weird because that was like the main focus of the first game.
Yeah. And they do. I think the fact that we start 4 years later and then we have a bunch of flashbacks to fill in the gap between part 1 and 2, I think that's a dumb idea. I think that the game should have started with Ellie finding out that Joel lied to her, and then they're estranged the entire game. You still kind of play as both of them, but they're kind of estranged or whatever, because then that would make what happens to Joel a little bit more impactful, because when the game starts, you don't really kind of know if she knows or like whatever. So it would have made it more impactful. And I think Joel probably should have died a little bit later on. I think having it start with him dying and not knowing the state of their relationship really kind of like, it's like, all right, like I get it. It's emotional and it's supposed to parallel the opening of the first game, but it's just kind of, it didn't have the same kind of like oomph that the first game
yeah
with.
And honestly, like I'm okay with the flashbacks and all that, but you're sitting there, you're wondering like, does Ellie even know what actually happened? But then it's just like, yeah, she knows, but she doesn't care. It's like, well,
no, she cares. She tells him like go fuck himself.
But like in the present day, she doesn't care. Like
in present day, she doesn't really seem to care all that much because she's still talking to him and she's still like acknowledging him or whatever. It would have been neat if Ellie was just like, fuck you, I want nothing to do with you. Like I'm leaving and I'm going on my own thing. And it's funny that I've seen like Angry Joe talk about it. I've seen Jeremy Johns talk about it, where they said like, how awesome would it have been if that's how the game opened, and then Ellie leaves and goes and does her own thing, and then she meets Abby along the way, and they kind of partner up, and then Abby, tells a story about this guy who like came in and like murdered her father in this hospital or whatever, and then she finds out later on in the game that, oh shit, Joel was the one that did that, and Ellie has a connection to Joel. And then Abby has to go fucking kill Joel. Like that would have been kind of fucking cool. That would have been a much better story, and that would have, I think, worked a lot better.
I also think this game should have taken out a lot of the side characters that were unneeded.
All of them.
I think you can keep Owen, and that's about it.
No, Owen was a piece of shit.
I'm not saying he's a good person.
He wasn't interesting.
You can keep him for the humanity side of Abby if you wanted it.
I guess, sure.
But everybody else doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Because it turns into this game of, okay, I have a hit list and I got to kill all these people. But then it's just like, you do it and then you go back in time 4 days and it's like, okay, these people are dead. So why am I playing as Abby? Why am I figuring out? I don't care.
Yeah, it's really kind of meaningless.
And the scars are useless in this game. I think they could be completely cut out and this game would be the exact same.
Are you talking about like all the scars or those two kids?
The entire faction of the scars could be cut out. You can have those 2 kids and just have them be 2 random kids. They don't have to be.
I think those 2 kids could have been cut out too, because I don't understand like why
I'm
they
just saying, if you wanted to
focus so much on them. Like I didn't care about them.
If you wanted to keep the kids, you can just make them 2 random kids. You could have made the wolves a smaller group, and it'd be the same story. You don't need them fighting the scars. You could have just had them be there, and Ellie's just infiltrating this base. You don't have to have there's a random war going on between these 2 people that I don't care
Devin,
about.
It's deep.
It's not deep. It doesn't matter.
It's art, man.
The only thing interesting about the scars is that they whistle. That's the most interesting thing they do. That's how they communicate. Other than that,
so, yeah.
They're just weird people in this world that I don't. It doesn't matter.
Weird. They're not really like explained very well.
Yeah, they're
kind of just like halfway through the game. You just there's this faction and they're just fucking weirdos. Like okay.
Yeah, they're just these people that happen to live on this island and they worship what they think is a god type thing, and they put scars on their face.
It's very weird.
It's weird, and I don't know why anybody was like, "That's a good idea," but it got approved somewhere.
I don't know. I think Neil Druckmann was trying to have another like David in the game from the first game, where it's like, oh, we have this like weird cult and they're like cannibals and shit.
Yeah, but
like he wanted to do that again, but with less interesting characters.
They don't do anything that's like super like weird besides that they're just weird people.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like the new zombies though, how do you feel about those?
That one zombie that's like a mixture of like 5 zombies just like mushed together. She was fucking terrifying. I pooped so hard when that fucking thing came out.
What's funny is that
I would have lost my goddamn mind if I was actually like in that moment. What's
funny is that there's a moment before you meet that zombie and you hear like these like big footsteps walking and stuff. And I'm sitting there watching Dylan play, and I'm like, I guarantee that's a zombie with a bunch of zombies mixed together in it. And then that's what it freaking was. Yeah. And I was just like, God, this game is way too predictable.
It's predictable, but like at the same time, that design looked cool as fuck. And it was terrifying.
It looked cool, but it's just like, okay, here's a big boss to fight. And it's
true, but I mean that's what the bloaters were in the first game. They're just clickers, but they're just fucking big.
But it's like, okay, there's bloaters out there. I don't think there's a lot of those weird mixture of people out there.
Probably not, but they still exist.
But I like there's 3 types of zombies and that's it. I think you could have made one more for this game and it would have been fine.
I like the ones that like run at you and fucking explode.
I was gonna say they added fun. They added 3 that I can remember. They added the weird ones that hide behind corners. They added the ones that run at you, explode, and then the really big dude. I don't think there was any others.
Not that I remember.
So they added another. So there's 6 types of zombies out there now.
Yeah, that's a little weird. It's very like Left 4 Dead-ish now.
It's very like, okay,
it's like, oh, we got the runners, we got the spitters, we got the wall crawlers, we got the like. It's a little weird.
Next, they're gonna be flying, and it's gonna be.
I hope not. If we get Last of Us 3 and there's fucking winged zombies, I'm done.
Right. And I think there was just way too much people fighting in this game.
I think there was too many people in general. Like
there were.
Like the side characters, the main characters, the people you fight. Like there was just too much like people fucking drama going on, and I hated all the love triangle bullshit.
Yeah.
It reminded me of like a CW show. I was like, what is it? Like, I'm not invested in any of these relationships. I don't know any of these characters to be invested in. Like, I don't know Dina. So like, why should she seems like kind of a bitch. So like, why should I care?
The only 2 people I like were invested in was Tommy and Ellie, and that's about it.
I was invested in Ellie. Tommy's like barely in it, but I was invested in Ellie's story.
I like Tommy. He's like that.
I like Tommy, but they ruined Tommy.
I don't know how do you think they ruined?
Because right after Joel's death, Tommy's like, "Oh, I don't know if we should like go after the people that killed him." No, fuck you. Tommy in The Last of Us 1 would have been like, we need to get our shit and let's go and avenge Joel's death."
I took that as he just didn't want to say it in front of his wife, type thing. Like he was just kind of like, okay, I'm gonna say this, but I knew when it happened that I'm because he leaves right after that scene.
Yeah.
So I think he was just kind of like downplaying it so that nobody would want to go with him.
But I feel like he would have knocked on Ellie's door and been like, "You got your shit, let's go."
I don't think he wanted to take Ellie just because she's like still kind of a kid.
I mean, Ellie's a badass.
She is.
Why would you not want to take Ellie with you?
I'm just saying.
She's also immune, so like she'd be fine.
He just wanted to get the revenge for himself, maybe. I don't know.
Fucking selfish bastard.
I like Tommy in this game. And I'm going to talk about this now because we're just talking about Tommy. There's a point in this game where he gets freaking shot in the head, and I'm like, oh, Tommy's freaking dead. And then just shows up.
Did he get shot in the head? Because I remember seeing that too, and I was like, oh, okay, so Tommy's just dead. And then he shows up again, and he's got a limp. Did he get shot in the head?
He did, because his eye was messed up in the later scene.
True.
So I'm guessing he got shot, but it just like grazed his eye.
Why is he got a limp?
It's probably hit part of his brain too. Maybe he's probably just old.
Maybe that's fair.
I don't know. But like that was a stupid. It was like a Black Panther moment. It's like, okay,
it was. I feel like if you're gonna do that, just fucking kill him. Like have the balls to at least be like, yeah, it sucks that he just gets a gunshot to the head, but like at least fucking kill him. At least have the balls to do that.
And like it doesn't. It's not like he did anything after that point. He just like, okay, after that point, he's like, okay, here's where Abby is.
That's kind of the problem I have with the script, because Neil Druckmann does that at the end of the game also, where it's like, okay, like when we see Ellie sort of on the farm with Dina and they have the kid, I thought that was going to be the end, and I was like, okay, I kind of see what he's going for here, and I kind of see like this could be a sort of her coming to terms with Joel's ultimate decision to save her at the end of the game, where she's like, oh, I get it now, I get why he did what he did, because now I have this kid and I'm having this kind of connection or whatever. And then the game goes on, and then she's like, okay, I got to go avenge Joel's death. And then Dina's like, all right, well, if you do that, like, I'm leaving, like, fuck you. And then Ellie goes, she gives up this good life that she's having with Dina to go avenge Joel's death. And then she doesn't even avenge his death because she lets Abby go. So she just, the whole point of the game, 20 hours, you don't get a happy ending. And you don't even get really like the fucked up ending where Ellie just like ruins her life, but still avenges Joel's death. You don't get either. You just get this weird, just like, something happened.
I think, honestly, the in-fight with Abby, I thought it was kind of funny where she's like, just leave. But I honestly, in my mind, I was thinking like, Ellie's just like, I won. Like, I will always be like in the back of your mind now.
I guess, but like, how does that? No, you let her go. She won that fight because you didn't kill her.
Abby didn't win. She obviously lost the fight, won. But it was like a tie.
She won that fight.
She did not win.
She won.
Just because there was no death doesn't make it not a win.
doesn't mean Ellie won. Because Ellie's goal was to fucking kill her, and she didn't kill her, so Ellie lost.
Ellie learned some humanity, I guess.
No, she didn't. She didn't learn shit. Because if she learned humanity, she would have stayed with that baby.
I think it was kind of a ruined character moment, because I think Ellie would have killed her. Honestly,
oh yeah, that's the entire point of the game. That's why that is the inciting incident of the game. Is, hey, Joel's dead. We got to go avenge his death. That's that's what sets you on this journey, and then nothing comes of it. Imagine if a movie did that. People would have been pissed.
There's also two characters that we focus on a lot, and they just die, and it's kind of stupid. Jesse, he just gets shot in the face.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, why did we spend so much time?
And it was really weird. Like, Dina doesn't bring it up. Like, you have his baby, and you're just, all right, he's cool, he's dead, fuck him.
We don't know that baby's name either. It's JJ.
I don't care.
And I honestly think
that baby again.
I honestly think it's like Jesse Joel or something like that. I don't know.
That's fucking dumb. I hope not.
I don't know what the J's stand for, but
JJ Abrams. I don't
know. And then the other character was the other kid that we spent an entire like mission getting supplies to cut off her arm.
Oh, the other Scar kid?
Yeah, and we'd spend like 2 hours saving this kid, and then she just dies later on in the game. She's like, this is stupid. This is dumb.
Yeah.
And I thought there was going to be something big with Isaac, the leader of the wolves, but nothing.
No, he was in like one scene.
He died also.
Yeah.
And it's just like, okay, why are we building up him to be this big bad dude, and then he just dies? Like nothing happens.
And that's the problem that everyone's having with this game, and everyone's like, oh no, you just don't get it. No, I get it. I completely understand like what happened in the game and like what the character's motives are. I just think it's dumb. I think Ellie should have, because if you're gonna, you either, with a character like Ellie, you either have her say fuck killing people and going down that path and becoming, something like Joel, and just becoming this kind of like crazy psychopath who's going to regret his entire life and stay on this farm and have a relatively good life, or say fuck everything and go get revenge and sort of start becoming Joel, she doesn't really do either. She's kind of just how she was at the beginning of the game, where she's just like mopey and miserable. And I'm like, all right, well then, what was the point? What was like? There's a point to the first Last of Us. There's a beginning, a middle, and an end. There's a story. There's a driving story. Joel, that game could have ended with them killing Ellie and then possibly making a cure or whatever. But Joel made the decision. He actively made that decision to say, no, fuck that. I'm gonna kill all y'all and I'm gonna go save Ellie. Ellie could have did the same thing, but she didn't. But she also didn't do the other thing either.
My kind of prediction for the end before I saw the end was whenever Abby found out there were other Fireflies out there, I was like, Ellie's gonna find this out and go with Abby and go make a cure. But it didn't happen. So
that's another thing. How come Ellie, like as an adult, doesn't just say like, hey, let's try to like, make a cure or some shit?
She doesn't even tell people that she's immune.
Yeah, because there's that one flashback towards the end where she was talking to Joel and she was like, you saved me from that thing. My life doesn't matter anymore. Like my life could have mattered, and if they made a cure from my brain or whatever. If that's how you feel, go make a fucking cure. Like you're an adult now. You're like 19.
And I think there might be a third one, and that's what it's setting up for. Because this one doesn't even really end. It's just like, okay, where's Ellie going at the end? Like, what's happening at the end of this game?
She's just gonna go walk off and just go murder more people, I guess.
Like, I guess it's a cool visual. She's just walking into the forest.
It was cool. It was kind of generic, though. Like, I kind of thought that, and I was like, all right.
But it's just like, okay, where's she going? Back to Jackson? Why? Is she gonna go find Dina? I don't know. Like, what's happening at the end of this game?
I don't know, but ultimately, like, the main issue with that is that, like, I don't care. Like, I'm kind of done after that, where I'm just like, all right, like, I don't care about Ellie anymore. Like, this was the chance to really like do something different and take Ellie in a new direction. But most of the game, she also doesn't feel like Ellie through most of the game, because what made Ellie likable and fun, and why everyone liked Ellie in the first game, was that she was the complete opposite of Joel. Joel was this like broken down, closed off, like emotionless human being who's just like been through some shit over the last 20 years. And Ellie was kind of like, yeah, she was born into the shit world, but she made the best of it. She was funny. She was quippy. She was optimistic. She was a kid. She was seeing things through kid eyes.
Read comic books and asked what things were in the real world, in the world before, and stuff like that.
And she was fun. She just told Bill to go fuck himself like a lot of times. Like, she was fine. She didn't care. And then at the end of the game, and what's great about the first Last of Us is that they kind of switch roles at the end, where Ellie's a little bit more closed off after everything that happens to her in the game, and then Joel's a little bit more open because he's been, going on this adventure for a fucking year with her. That's kind of where her arc stops. You can't really continue that on any further because, like they do in this game, she's just kind of boring. Because she's not the quippy fun Ellie. She's just kind of a boring, like, whatever person, and she's like mopey all the time, and like, that's not fun. I don't want to play as this character. And she doesn't go from mopey to like back to her old ways of being quippy and whatever. She's just mopey throughout the whole fucking thing. Like, that's so boring.
I see what you're saying.
She doesn't even find happiness. Like, there's no. She doesn't have an arc in this game.
I know, but there's still probably going to be a third one.
There will be a third one because this game sold like hotcakes.
I've seen a lot of people not liking this game, though.
That doesn't matter. It sold like hotcakes.
I sold like hotcakes. Could you save, if you had to make a third one, how would you save it?
I think I wouldn't have made, if I was going to make another Last of Us game, I wouldn't like have it focus on Ellie again.
At all? Or
no.
Like have her in it at all? Not at all? Or
I think Last of Us 2 should have been a completely standalone like side story about someone completely different. Because I think Joel and Ellie's story was done in the first game. You could maybe have like a small, I mean a fucking small reference to the first game where maybe someone's like, oh yeah, did you hear that like a fucking, like all the Fireflies, like some dude just shot up a hospital with all the Fireflies on it? Like, that was weird. Like something like that. That'd be fine. That's all you need, though. I don't want them to like go any further than that. But like some little small little reference to be like, oh yeah, I remember that. I played that. But I think it should have been a completely different story with completely different characters. It's just set in this world. Maybe you could run into Ellie or something, in one of the games and be like, "Oh, hey, Ellie, she's all grown up now. What's she going on? What's she doing?" I don't think she. I don't think I'm not gonna say she as a character. I'm gonna say that I don't think they had an interesting enough idea or arc for Ellie to justify her being the main character of her own fucking game when she's not even really the main character.
Who is the main character, Abby?
I mean, it's both of them, really.
It is. There's a lot of forced parallels in this game, though.
I guess, but like the moment there's so many bullshit fucking moments in this where it's like Abby was right there. She was right there, and same thing with Ellie. When they first meet, when they like have that confrontation right after Ellie like murders a bunch of like all of her friends, Ellie could have shot her in the brain right then and there.
Wait, which?
And then the game would have been over. Like right when Abby busts in and she's like, "Oh, you killed all my fucking friends," and she's like pointing the gun at Ellie or whatever. And then when you play as Abby later on, you fight Ellie or whatever.
Oh,
Ellie could have killed her. Same thing with Abby. Abby could have killed her. She almost killed Dina. Why didn't she?
Because that kid was there.
Okay. But you killed my friend who was pregnant. So I think it's only fair that I get to kill your friend that's fucking
Abby
pregnant.
also could have killed Ellie at the very beginning when she killed Joel. She could have,
but I don't think she gave a fuck at that point about Ellie because Ellie had nothing to do with it.
She could have also taken Ellie, be like, she's the immune kid from earlier.
I mean, yeah, does she know that Ellie was the one who was? Does she know that Ellie's immune?
Ellie told her.
That is a good question.
Ellie told her like halfway through the game.
Yeah, but does she? Because she was part of the Fireflies and her father was like the doctor. So does she know? Because I think there's a flashback.
There is
with Abby.
She does know that there's an immune kid out there because they're talking to the doctor and they're like, "What if this was your daughter?" And Abby walks in. And
that's the scene I'm talking about.
Yeah, and Abby walks in.
Does she know that that's Ellie though?
I don't know if she knows that's Ellie, but Ellie does tell her halfway through the game.
Okay, because I was gonna say like if she knew that at that point, like why didn't she like use that at some point?
Like when Abby and Ellie meet in the theater, Ellie's like, I'm the immune person. You're the one. I'm the one you want. Leave what's his face alone.
Yeah.
And then Abby doesn't even care. So
yeah, so it's all just kind of pointless. And
again, Ellie's immunity means nothing in this game. Like
the entire journey you went on in the first game is fucking meaningless.
She gets bit and she inhales spores and it doesn't do anything to her. But like other than that, it doesn't matter. In the grand scheme of things, where it should. She's the only immune person we know of in this world.
Well, I mean, the first game alludes to, like, if you pick up like those audio tapes and stuff, it alludes to the fact that like they found more people who were immune that they tried to make a cure from that they couldn't. So like she's not like the first one, but they think that maybe like, oh, now this is the time we can make a cure, and that's why Joel does what he does because he's like, I'm not gonna take that chance. Like,
I still think if there is a third one, I'm calling it now. Abby and Ellie are gonna be in it again, and Abby's gonna go find those other Fireflies, and Ellie's gonna sacrifice her life.
No, I think that's really stupid.
This game was kind of that. This game was kind of that predictable once I saw the start of it.
It was predictable, but I don't want another predictable game, especially after waiting 7 years. I don't want to wait another 7 years for the bullshit. Like, no.
What if they make a third one? It's like another giant time jump, and Ellie's like a 40-year-old woman.
Oh, Jesus Christ! No, there would be another time jump. I don't think it'd be that drastic, but she'd be like 25, 30 probably. I
don't know. Maybe she's a cool Joel-esque character, and
but she was already kind of that in this. Where she's just like a boring, like, oh, I don't care about anything, and I'm
but what if
emo and blah.
Gets back to the optimistic version of herself?
That'd be cool. But like, is the rest of the story going to be good? Probably not.
And she's running around with the JJ kid because Dina died mysteriously.
Where the fuck she find that kid at?
She went and found Dina later on. There's a time jump.
I mean, I guess.
I don't know. Maybe that's what happens.
How did you feel about Joel's death overall? Did you think it was necessary? Did you think it was justified? Did you like how he died?
I knew Joel was dying somewhere in this game. I didn't know when. I didn't know if it was going to be like a beginning, middle, end type thing. I knew he was going down sometime in this game. I thought his death was kind of brutal, which I kind of liked, honestly, because I'm like, okay, some games would either have him get bit or like he gets shot in the head or whatever.
Mhm.
No, this game, like, freaking, he's like still alive type thing until the final blow, and it's kind of sad because it reminds me. You don't watch The Walking Dead, but it reminds me like the Glenn death of Negan bashing his head in. It reminds me of that, and it's just like, God, he's just watching Ellie.
It's very like matter of fact and like blunt.
Yeah, and he's just watching Ellie as he dies. There's nothing you can do about it. It's kind of sad.
That's kind of why I like it as well, because it's always fascinating to me in like movies and stuff when like a character just dies, and it's like in The Departed when Leonardo DiCaprio, spoilers for The Departed if anybody hasn't seen The Departed, I'm going to spoil it right now, but like Leonardo DiCaprio the whole movie, he's the hero of the movie, and he's, you know, we spend 2.5 hours with this character, and then all of a sudden, like at the end, he gets Matt Damon, and he's like, I'm gonna take you to fucking jail, whatever. And then they go in this elevator door opens, he gets shot in the head,
right?
And then like that's the end of his character. I think that's so interesting, where it's just like, all right, he's just dead. Like it's not this big, there's no like big epic music, there's no like explosions, he doesn't go out like guns blazing, he just dies. I think that's kind of neat, and I think especially for the setting, I think that's kind of cool.
He dies in a very like it fits the world type thing.
Yeah,
like,
that's how everyone else dies.
Yeah, that's how anybody could die. It's not like he's riddled with bullets and he's Superman just dying, but nah, he just finds some people that were looking to hunt him down and they kill him.
Because he dies the same way that you murder people in the first game by just beating them to death.
Right.
So I thought that was kind of appropriate.
Why? Like, I don't know. I just hate that there were so many people that we were supposed to like know from that 5-minute scene of finding them.
How do you feel about what they did with Joel in this? Because he's not in it a whole lot, but he's in it. Do you think that like do you like what they did with him? Do you like his kind of like story that he had?
I like all the flashbacks and stuff, like all that.
Yeah, he's really only in flashbacks.
I liked it, honestly. I liked how they didn't touch upon his music background a lot in the first game, but I like how they touched upon it in this game.
Yeah, they had a brief reference where he was like, "Oh, I wanted to be a singer." And then that was it.
And I like how they built upon it in this game. I like that aspect.
That was fun.
I really like the flashback where they're in the museum.
That's the best part of the game. I completely forgot about that. That's the best part of the game because it's Ellie when she's fun and optimistic and like whatever, and it's Joel kind of when he's kind of optimistic too. So that we're kind of getting to see that bond finally. That like after like post Last of Us, we're getting to see that father-daughter bond between the two, and it's just a really quiet, like really great, genuine moment between these two. And there's like no gameplay. Really,
no, you just kind of walk around and talk.
Yeah, and even when there was a point where it was like, oh, don't like force like zombies into this fucking like awesome moment. They don't. They do a bait and switch, which is like, oh, a fucking warthog just like runs past you, and that's it. Yeah. And I'm like, that's fun. Like that's cool.
Yeah, and there's an awesome Jurassic Park reference in that moment too.
I mean, he literally just says like Jurassic Park, doesn't
he? He also quotes Jeff Goldblum.
That's a big pile of shit,
which is amazing.
That's an accurate quote for this game, though.
10 out of 10 scene right there. There was another flashback that I can't remember what happens. I don't know. But I thought they showed a flashback what it looked like to be like the last thing Ellie said to Joel, and I'm like, don't end it on that. Like that's like the last thing they talked to each other about.
Oh, you mean like right like near the end of the game when they had that like final flashback? I thought that's where they were going to end it too, because it kind of felt like
because they got in an argument. And I was like, is that really the last thing that they said to each other? But then they made it a little better, and I it's okay how they ended.
I think they kind of like ruined Joel's character a little bit. Like it's interesting that they do have a conversation about it, and it's interesting that Joel is kind of like regretful, and he is kind of like, if I could go back, I would, you know, do it totally different, but I made that choice and I have to live with that now. No, and he's like really depressed.
He said if he could go back, he'd do it again.
Is that what he said?
Yeah, he said.
I thought he was like in that one flashback. I thought he was like, I pray to the Lord every night that like I could go back and, you know, fix what it did or whatever.
No, he said if the Lord gave me a second chance, I would do it all over again. That's what he said.
Yeah, I thought he meant like he would do it over, like he would change.
I think he meant like he would do it again, like he would say that again.
That might be what he was talking about. I might have misinterpreted that.
Maybe that's because I'm still thinking that's how he's thinking. And
I mean, that's how he would think.
That's
That
what I.
like because I feel like Joel kind of what made Joel so fucking interesting in The Last of Us was that like yeah, what he did like maybe he kind of did like damn humanity and like fuck everything up, but you get it. Like if you were put in his shoes, you probably would have done the same thing.
This is how I took it. Joel's probably thinking, you know what, the world's been like this for 20 years. Who cares?
And yeah, that's why I thought they were gonna end it on Ellie in the farm with the baby and Dina, because then that could have been a really like sweet, genuine moment where Ellie realizes that like, oh, Joel did he didn't like give me some kind of meaning. He let me live a life, and things are still kind of shitty, but you know it's gonna be okay. Like we have this nice house, we have a baby, like things are gonna be all right. There's a little beacon of hope in this shit world that we live in, you know, like, and that could have been a really kind of interesting ending for a game like this, where it's like in the darkness there's this small little you know little beam of hope that like maybe everything's just gonna be okay and we can rebuild and whatever. Nope.
For a moment, I thought the house was a dream sequence.
It felt very much like a dream sequence.
It came kind of like just straight out of nowhere.
It does, yeah.
And I was like, Tommy's still around. I'm like, what? Like, I swear he died earlier.
It looked like he died. He was on the ground, shot him in the back, blood's everywhere. Like he was dead.
Right. But then I was like, but it's not. This is life now, I guess.
Yeah.
How did you feel about the finger ripping off at the very end?
I mean, it
symbolizes the one connection she has with Joel left is gone. Like the music playing, she can't play her guitar no more.
Oh man, that's so emotional, and I care so much. I think a lot of the stuff in this, including that, was just done for like shock value and just to like subvert expectations and to just be like pretentious fucking nonsense. Like Neil Druckmann is like the new Ryan Johnson.
I wasn't even shocked by that. Like as soon as I saw Abby rip her fingers off, I'm like, she can't play guitar anymore. It's like the first.
Yeah.
So it's just like, okay, but like I understand why Abby did it, so she wouldn't die. I would have bit somebody's fingers off too.
No, if I was Abby, I would have stabbed her in the fucking head.
I don't think she had a knife.
Okay, you've been the entire game. You've been beating the shit and like choke slamming zombies the whole fucking time. Choke slam this little like 180-pound woman.
She had been in a prison for months.
Okay, so, I mean, but in that fight, she held her own pretty well, because Ellie was also kind of fucked up and was like,
yeah.
So like you could have just like one hit to Ellie like in the face. I think Ellie would have like got knocked the fuck out.
It also bugs me that they barely acknowledge that Abby is this monster of a human being.
I don't mind that, and I know people are gonna be, oh, you're just sexist and you just hate, you don't want women to be buff. I don't mind that she's buff. I just think it's weird that no one else in the game looks like that. It's distracting. They do acknowledge it towards the end.
Towards the end, but like the whole like, I want to say like 5/6 of the game, they're just like, this is normal. Even like Joel doesn't like you're kind of like he doesn't say anything.
Yeah, like there's no like weird look where she's like, oh wow, okay, you're buff.
Like I understand the people she's with don't say anything because they've been around her for a while, but like people she meets don't say, they don't like.
And like if I was that jacked, I would constantly let everyone know that I was that jacked.
Right.
Like look at these fucking arms, man.
She did it for a reason. Like she didn't just wake up one morning like, oh, I'm jacked now. It's like no.
But there was a really funny line from Tommy where he was like, at the end when he's talking to Ellie, he's like, oh, I talked to some guy. He said he saw a girl that was built like a fucking ox. Yeah. I was like, that's pretty funny.
And that was like the first time they acknowledged it. That was like, thank you. Somebody's like, okay, she's a
but at that point, if you're not going to make it like a point in the game, why do it?
Right.
Because it looks distracting. Because it looks like you took a male character's body and then just pasted a lady's head on it. Because no one else in the game looks that way.
No, and I thought it was gonna play on something, but it never did.
I thought she was at first. I thought she was like a transgender or something.
No, I didn't think that. I thought
that was gonna be like her character arc or whatever.
In the flashback, she's not buff, and I thought, okay, something's gonna happen.
Not. She still has a very like buff chest though.
Nah, she
has like a manly like. She's got like pecs.
She's skinny, but I thought
really
like
weird.
It was gonna show like something happens, and then like she kind of just like goes into this.
Maybe the death of her dad made her like.
But it doesn't.
I gotta like fucking get jacked.
It doesn't, because they do that flashback where he dies, and then it does another flashback, and it's like a year or two after that, and she's still not jacked.
Yeah, no, but I'm saying like that in any other thing that would have been the reason why. that would have been the driving force for her to get
And I
that.
thought that was gonna be that, but I thought, and then when she wasn't in the next flashback, I was like, okay, something else is gonna happen, and then she goes into this state, but it never happened. She just kind of just becomes buff for no reason.
Yeah, it is really weird.
Which I'm fine with, especially in a post-apocalyptic world. Women are probably going to be a little more muscular than normal, and I'm fine with that. I don't care, but at least say why or acknowledge it. Don't just because it's not normal.
Or don't acknowledge it. Just have other buff people running around.
Or that too. Maybe the whole wolves could have been these jacked out of their mind people.
Because I don't care. Like, cool, she's a buff lady. Fine, there are buff ladies running around in real life, but there's more than one buff woman running around in real life.
Yeah, I don't know.
Like every time, like when she's walking through her little like camp that they live in, and everyone else, like the women and the men, just look like these skinny little like dying people who haven't eaten anything in a while, and she's just fucking coming over here like the Incredible Hulk. I'm like, that's weird. No one else, like there's like 1,500 people in this fucking space. No one else has arms out like that. Like, that's weird.
She had bigger arms than Owen.
Exactly. And they had a weird sex scene as well. It came out of nowhere. And it wasn't necessary. I was like, why do we need this? And it also, they had this whole, we spent half the game, like 10 hours playing as Abby to try and humanize her to justify her decision for killing Joel. She has sex with Owen, who's, I'm assuming he's married to that other lady, right?
He's at least dating that other
lady. And she's just fine with it. And then when that other lady like calls her out on it, she gets all like defensive about it. I'm like, no, you're a piece of shit.
They both are.
You're a piece of shit.
Both Owen and Abby are.
Yeah, they are
bad people.
But then it's like, if the whole point of this was to humanize her and to make her a little bit more likable and to make her less of like, oh, she's a villain. She's kind of, to the point where, Joel was kind of humanized in the first game where he did a lot of fucked up stuff, but we still kind of liked him. I don't like this person. She's a piece of shit.
Right.
So it was that was weird. And I didn't like that pregnant lady either, because she was going out into warfare.
I'm pregnant, yeah.
Pregnant. I'm like, you don't care about your baby at all. All right. No.
It doesn't matter. The baby died, and so did she.
Yeah, so fuck it. She wanted an abortion. She just didn't want to pay for it.
Owen died. Everybody died except Abby.
Yeah, I guess, which is weird. It kind of, everything, this game kind of just like meshes together for me, because there's not a lot that happens. It's just really drawn out.
You do it twice. You do everything.
You do it twice. So it's like, all right, cool.
Yeah, me and Dylan, when we got to the point where Abby and Ellie meet in the theater and it cuts to black, I was like, is this a commercial break? Like, what the hell just happened?
That'd be hilarious. Commercials just start playing.
And then we start playing as Abby, and me and Dylan are like, no, we're not going to play as Abby for like 4 days in Seattle like we did as Ellie, are we? And then, yep, that's exactly what happened.
I thought maybe like that would have been, like at that point, they were going to flash back to Abby, and you play as Abby for like a mission.
That's what I thought.
Just to kind of be like, all right, this is, her whole deal or whatever. But then, no, it's like, here's 10, 15 hours of gameplay that you have to play as her now. And it's like, all right, like, I don't care. Abby, if you're going to do that, have that be the second game, is just Abby's story. Because how cool would it have been if the game starts off at where The Last of Us 1 left off, where it's like Abby's like running through this hospital, everybody's just like, there's dead bodies like everywhere, whatever. She runs into this room, she's crying about her dad in the fucking hospital, and then her main MO is like, I'm gonna find this motherfucker and I'm gonna kill him. Your whole journey, you go cross country just like you did in the first one with your buddies or whatever, to go find Joel and to kill him. And then at the end, you do that and you kill Joel. You killed the main character of the first game that you played as, but in your shoes in this game, you're technically the protagonist. You're technically the hero of the story, even though you killed the hero of the last game. Like, that's kind of interesting, and that kind of would have been fun.
I don't know if people would have liked that, though. I don't know if I would have liked that, honestly.
I think that would have been better than this. Because at least because at that point you would have an entire game that's just focused on Abby, instead of having this really uninteresting, bland story that's mostly about Ellie, and then having us play that story from Abby's perspective, and not really fleshing her out all that much and making her kind of a piece of shit. You would have an entire 25-hour game of just her going on this journey, and we would have started from the beginning. We wouldn't have done this weird like time hopping bullshit that everything does now. Everything does that when they're trying to like, oh, we're trying to be deep and like, oh, that happened first, even though it takes place 20 hours into the game. Just have it chronological.
I still hate the setting of Seattle. I hate it.
I mean, Seattle just sucks in general.
Not even that. It's just so bland. In the game, it's so bland. I wish it was all in Santa Barbara because Santa Barbara looked cool. Palm trees.
I think the music was kind of like not as good as it was in the first game.
That's what. And Dylan's a music guy, and Dylan's like the music in this was bad except for the stuff that they used from the first game.
Yeah, because they recycled like the main theme a lot in the game. And then there's not like the first Last of Us. I go back every now and then and I listen to that soundtrack. I bought that fucking soundtrack on Amazon, and I go back and I just listen to specific things because it's great. There's nothing like I can't even bring up one piece of music from the second one that was created for the second one that like is even in my head.
Nah, and Dylan agrees. He's like the music in the same is kind of bad.
Yeah, it just fucking sucks.
And Ellie sings. I forget what that song's called when she's singing on the guitar.
Like an actual song.
It is an actual song, and it's a very upbeat, like happy song. But she plays it really depressing in this game, and it really was
because it's depressing, man.
It's really weird, and I guess it makes sense because she probably has never actually heard the song. She just heard Joel sing it, but.
I don't know, but I mean, there is music in this. Like, there's electricity and there's music and there's records and shit. So I'm sure she's heard music.
I guess I don't know, but it was really that was just weird to me. So your overall for Last of Us 2 is bad. Is that what you're saying?
I from a story perspective, because I didn't play the fucking game. I'm sure the gameplay's fine. I'm sure it's fun. I'm sure it's sure it's a solid third person shooter. I'm sure the game looks fucking great. I'm sure the graphics are so fucking great they look better than real life because that shit's important in a game. But strictly from a story standpoint, I think it's dumb.
I don't know about gameplay either, but based on when I saw Dylan, it was very frustrating. The gameplay was.
I mean, that might have just been Dylan.
It could have been, but Dylan's just sitting there. He's like, this mission is freaking impossible. He's like, why did they throw me with so many zombies?
I mean, yeah, I did notice that as well, where they just like, they do that a lot in the first Last of Us, but in the first Last of Us, you can kind of get around it, like with the people and the zombies, where like, if you're smart, you can just be like, all right, I'm going to do this and do that. In this, it seems like, hey, we're just going to throw you in a room with like 50 fucking people and you're just fucked.
Yeah. And then Dylan would be like, okay, finally, I killed all these people. I have like no more bullets, and then you walk like a little bit further, and it's like, okay, there's more people. It's like, God, dang, you can't stealth. You don't have enough stealth things to stealth it. Like you have a couple arrows and a couple silencers, but you can't do the whole thing stealth.
Yeah.
And I think that bugged Dylan because he was really into the stealth part of the first game. He didn't like to go in loud. He liked to do the stealth part, and he was really frustrated when there's just a million people shooting.
Yeah, I mean, the first game, like you have to do a lot of that stealth.
Right.
Like
this game is just you're thrown into like a battleground and it's 1v30 type thing.
Which maybe that's what they were going for.
I don't
know. And also, like, can people stop like arguing about this fucking game as if it matters what people think about it? Everyone's yelling at each other online about like, oh no, this game's good. Y'all are just dumb. You just don't understand the story. No, this game sucks. You're just an idiot. But stop. You're allowed to like whatever the fuck you want. You're allowed to dislike whatever the fuck you want. It's a fucking video game.
You even said this is the Last Jedi of video games.
It is. People are going to be yelling at each other about this for the next 7 years, and I'm going to shoot myself in the balls.
Unlike the Last Jedi, though, me and you kind of agree on this game. So,
for the most part, yeah. What do you think about it? What are your overall thoughts on the story?
Like I said, I'm still mixed on it. Like honestly, I feel like I need to like sit down and think about it more. But like. Especially talking to you about it and like saying what I think out loud, it makes me realize like how much I don't like it, honestly. Because when it first ended, I was like, okay, it was fine. It wasn't like bad, but it wasn't good. But then talking about it to you, I'm starting to think like, yeah, it was worse than I thought. Coming off the high of finishing it, type thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So do you
So
think that there's like more bad than good or more good than bad in the game?
there's definitely more bad than good, I
More
would
bad
say.
than good.
Definitely.
But you wouldn't say it's like a piece of shit. You just say it's like,
No,
I don't know.
because I've seen piece of shit games, and that's definitely not a piece of shit game. But if you're just comparatively to the first one, it's not good compared to the first one.
And the first one to me is kind of like Star Wars, where like they captured lightning in a bottle and they made a great thing, and they should have left it the fuck alone.
This could have been The Empire Strikes Back, though.
This could have, but that's hard to do though.
It is. It's very hard to do.
That's why. Like if I ever make something that's even like half as good as The Last of Us, I ain't touching it.
Would you have? Do you think they should have brought in a different writer, or do you think that
no? Because Neil Druckmann. Because I remember after The Last of Us came out, he was given Uncharted 4, and that was his first like Uncharted game that he worked on. Uncharted 4 is great, and that's the story in that is great, and that's a great conclusion to the Uncharted series. So I was actually excited for The Last of Us. I was like, oh, Neil Druckmann's a solid writer. He didn't just get lucky. You know, he's not George Lucas, where he made a movie that just happened to, you know, get edited well by somebody else. A bunch of money. Like, he's a good writer. So I was expecting good writing from this fucking game. And I guess he was just smelling his own farts and was like, I can write anything and people are going to love it. This is genius.
I also think you're right. He wasn't really planning on a sequel. So when they hired him to do a sequel, he kind of did what everybody thought was going to happen type thing.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just, this game is just a little too predictable for me compared, like when the first one, stuff happened that I wasn't expecting to happen type thing.
Like, and I mean, the first one has like tropes and it has like generic stuff in it that every zombie has. But what held the story, what made you care about the story and want to continue to play the game was the characters and their journey. Because Joel and Ellie are really interesting characters in that game. This didn't have anything like that. So it makes it so when you don't have interesting characters or an interesting journey to go on with those characters, all the flaws in the story get pointed out even more. And they're flashing in your face. Nothing else to hold you over.
Yeah, I think the more I think about this game, the less I'm gonna like it. And that's hard for me to say because I really wanted to like this game, honestly, going into it. I
wanted to love this game. I was hoping this would be like game of the year, like fucking A.
Right. I don't know. There's something just off about it too. It's just something that just doesn't feel right. I don't know what it is specifically.
I think it's the same thing that movies do nowadays, where it's like you make a great movie and it's amazing and it's awesome or whatever, and then the sequel comes along and tries to capture the same in the magic, but it's not the same.
Because I watched you play the first Last of Us, like beginning to end, and then just recently I watched Dylan play it beginning to end, and I was like, this still feels the same as when the first time I watched somebody play this game. When I watched somebody play the second game, I'm just kind of like, it doesn't feel like the same game almost. Or even worse, it feels like the exact same game but with a worse story.
I mean, yeah, that's what it felt like.
Yeah. So I don't know. That's my closing thoughts on it, though.
The best part of this game, I don't know if you noticed this. There's a couple points where there's a couple characters that you interact with that have PS Vitas, and there's one where when Ellie like she like puts her arm around a girl's neck and then I think she like chokes her out or whatever. She drops the Vita. Hotline Miami was playing on that fucking Vita, and I was like, "Fuck! I wish this game was so much better because I would have loved that, and I would have given this game like 10 points just for that." I had Hotline Miami on my Vita.
I do remember that happening. I didn't know that that's what they were playing on.
Yeah, because I didn't notice that until I started hearing music, and I was like, "Wait a minute, is that Hotline Miami music?" And then like they panned the camera down, and I was like, "Oh shit, that's a Vita." Like, it's a cool little reference.
Poor PlayStation. The Vita came out too soon, man.
It did. The Vita was so good, man.
If it would have came out like this year, it would be like amazing.
So I tried to get a PS Vita like not too long ago. $400 still.
Yeah,
it's fucking nuts.
Came out before its time, man. It's before its time.
Yeah, it came out like towards the end of the PS3 life cycle. Like old, man.
But overall, Last of Us 2 not as good as the first one.
Not. I wouldn't even say it's like close.
I mean, I'm not saying it was close. I'm just saying not as good as the first.
It's a bad game.
It's not a bad. It's like the same thing with movies. It's
a bad story.
It's not a bad game. It's a bad story.
I'll say that it's a bad story. Which the story is like 80% of the game.
Because there's nothing in the game that's like game breaking or anything like that.
I mean, it's not like, that is a good point. Like, there's not like the game works.
Yeah.
And it's functional and like you can play it. It's not like a train wreck to play. It just has a bad story in it.
Right. Which for The Last of Us, that's the meat of the game is you want the story to be good.
Kind of the entire point of the game.
Right. Nobody plays The Last of Us to just play the gameplay of The Last of Us. They do the story. Unless you're a freaking weirdo.
I mean, I'm sure there's
no offense to the people out there that do that, but you're a weirdo.
Weirdos out there probably do that.
But yeah, that's my closing thoughts. Anything else you want to say though before?
No, I really don't want this to be The Last Jedi. I don't want people to bitch and complain about this for the next like 5-6 years. Like, just enjoy this game if you enjoy it. Don't enjoy it if you don't enjoy it. Move on. Go play something else. Go play Ghost of Tsushima because that game looks awesome.
Go play Last of Us 1 again.
Go play Last of Us 1.
It's still great.
It's because it's a fucking phenomenal game. All right, like, just quit your bitching. Nobody's wrong. No, I keep seeing people being like, "Oh no, you're wrong. It's fucking good." No, nobody's wrong. It's an opinionated thing.
Everybody's allowed their own opinions. So
yeah, so quit being fucking babies about everything.